Hello, you beautiful people. Today we are back with another buy low and sell high players video. So before we begin, I know I haven't been posting that consistently. I got exams, final papers coming up. You know how it is, man. Just your boy been busy. But starting December 16th, I'm going to try to post a video every single day for fantasy until the new year. So if that's something you're interested in, then consider subscribing. And don't forget to drop a like on the video as well. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started with the buy low players for this week. The first one I want to talk about is the thumbnail of this video, and it's going to be Paul George. Now, if we're looking at Paul George's recent games, he hasn't scored over 40 fantasy points per game for his last 8 games now, and we're talking about a guy that's going to finish top 10 in total fantasy points by the end of the season. I predicted it at the start, and I'm going to stand by that right now. He's just been having a little bit of a shooting slump recently. He's had a few high turnover games. He had an 8 turnover game against Golden State, 7 turnovers against New Orleans, and overall is just fantasy numbers like across the board have pretty much been down. But like I mentioned, it's mainly just the scoring department. He's like the last 7 days he's averaging 20 points per game versus 25, and honestly I am not concerned at all if I have Paul George on my team. I'm not looking to trade him away. If you have Paul George, I would definitely keep him because everyone's going to be lowballing you right now. And yeah, I think Paul George is a great player to try to trade for. And I've taken some advice from the comments and sort of tried to look at like recent trades that have gone down with Paul George to sort of gauge like his market value. But the only one I could find for him recently has been Paul George and Draymond Green for Jimmy Butler and Clint Capella. And honestly, that's not even that bad of a trade. That seems pretty even. I would probably say that Jimmy Butler and Clint Capella side's winning, so not too helpful in terms of rating Paul George's value. But that's all I got for you guys. If you have any completed trades with Paul George, then join the link. Click the link in the description to join the Discord. We have a points leagues trade you've completed, category leagues trades you've completed. You can just throw any trades you've made in there and just help everyone out in terms of like gauging the market value of players. But yeah, moving on from that anyway. That's going to wrap it up for Paul George. I don't really have too much to say about him. I would not panic. He does sort of have these stretches where he's like shooting below par for what he's normally producing, but he's been one of the most consistent like performers on the offensive end the past few seasons, and I'm really not seeing anything that would alarm me to try to trade Paul George. So if you have him, don't worry, don't panic, trade him. I'm sure it's going to sort itself out soon. Anyways, next up on my list for buy low players is going to be Bradley Beal, and he's someone that's just been having an overall rough start to his season from a fantasy perspective and from like a basketball perspective. He just has not been scoring at rates that we've historically seen from him. I mean, the dude was averaging like 30 points per game last season, and now he's averaging 21.9. And while the scoring numbers are way down, his assist numbers are still pretty solid at we're averaging around 6 assists per game. And he's someone that I'm expecting to have a really big like turnaround in like the second half of the season. I don't know what's been going on. It seems the new foul rules have sort of been affecting. He's sort of been the guy that hasn't been being mentioned as much as other players that have been affected by the new foul rules. But it turns out it's really been harming Beal's numbers. He hasn't been scoring the ball like he has been like in previous seasons. But overall, I'm not too worried about him. I have him in my personal 8-team league, and I'm not listening to any trade offers for him because he's averaging like 34.8 fantasy points per game. And I think there's no way that he doesn't average at least 40 by the end of the season. I'm really expecting his performances to sort of pick up soon. There's no way that this trend's going to continue for the entirety of the season. He's one of the best scorers in the league, and I just really see no cause for concern right now. I know it's been a slow start, but honestly, it's really not worth it. And if we look at the trade tracker, there have been a lot more trades involving Bradley Beal. I'm getting this data from Yahoo because I'm not going to lie, they're way better than ESPN for this kind of shit. But anyway, if we look at recent trades involving Bradley Beal, he was traded for D'Angelo Russell, which if that gives you an idea of how low his value is right now, I think that's a great trade if you have D'Lo on your team and you can trade him for Bradley Beal. Solid trade. He was traded for Fred VanVleet. That one's honestly pretty even. And then there's a lot of 2v2 trades. And then one here, he was traded for Andrew Wiggins and Aaron Gordon. Like, that's terrible, bro. Like, that's just going to show you how low his value is. We had another one for Drew Holiday, Zach LaVine. I would take Bradley Beal over Drew Holiday and Zach LaVine, honestly. So I hope that gives you guys some ideas about like potential trades in case you want to have any of these players on your team and you want to sort of make an offer for Bradley Beal. I'm comfortable offering any of the guys I mentioned for him. I think those are all really good deals if you can pull them off. And yeah, before we get into the rest of the video, we got a quick word from our sponsors. Today's video is brought to you by Manscape, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping if you use the code TBP at checkout at manscaped.com. So, imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed, and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom. I'm one of the first people to try the 4.0, as you can see right here, and I'm blown away by the performance. The craftsmanship and details on this thing are next level. I mean, we've all had that experience, when you're going to practice, whether it be basketball, soccer, whatever you're playing, you get a little nick in there and you're just in pain the whole practice. Lawnmower 4.0 can help you avoid that. So, Manscaped engineered the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and an incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their fourth generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. I now feel confident shaving my boys. This upgraded trimmer includes a multi-function on-off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn on the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when you need a more precise shave. So I'll just show you guys that here. As you can see, pretty cool. Lawnmower 4.0 even allows you to customize your trim through additional guard lengths with sizes 1 through 4. Men, if you've been shaving with the same nut trimmer that you've been using on your face, you've been doing it wrong, all right? Nobody wants pubes in their mouth, all right? Come on, let's get behind that, fellas. So, it's time to get your own ball hair and body trimmer with Manscaped to make me time the best time and enhance your confidence with some nice smooth boys. So, don't forget to get 20% off and free shipping with the code TBP at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and don't forget to use the code TBP. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Thank you so much to Manscaped for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. Alright, thanks for watching that. So now we're on to the next player on my list, and this is another buy low candidate, and I think it's Jalen Brown. So normally I'm against trading for guys that are sort of dealing with injuries, but when it's in this case, I'm going to make a rare exception because I feel like his value is so low right now that you're not going to have to give up a lot to get him. And I know he's dealing with a hamstring injury, so if you're not comfortable taking that risk, I totally understand, but in my view, I'm like, if you don't have to offer that much, then I think it's completely worth it. If you have a really solid team and you just want to take that next leap and you can sort of afford to have a few more missed games from him because he is dealing with the hamstring injury, if he does get that sorted out, I do expect his fantasy points to be upwards around 40 fantasy points per game. I had him ranked inside my top 40 this season, and I stand by that. The injury just was really, he missed 8 straight games with it, and then the 5 games when he was back, he was visibly not 100%, so they're holding him out for a few more games. But if that gets resolved, which I'm pretty confident it will, I do expect his fantasy numbers to take a significant increase, and I think this is a good time to trade for him. So if we go ahead and look at recent trades involving Jalen Brown, I mean, we got one Jalen Brown for Klay Thompson and Tyrese Halliburton. Again, that's not too much to give up for Jalen. It's a pretty decent trade. It depends when Klay's coming back or how highly you rate Klay, I suppose. And then any other one-for-one trades, we got Jalen Brown and Jeremy Grant for Anthony Edwards. That's sort of ridiculous. Anthony Edwards is not that much. Him and Jalen Brown are probably pretty similar in value, honestly. And then just to throw in Jeremy Grant, that's kind of a weird trade. Then we got Jalen Brown for Jonas Valanciunas. Jalen Brown and Tobias Harris for DeMar DeRozan. Okay, that's just terrible. I don't know what's going on there. And then, I think that... And then we got, it seems like a pretty common one is Draymond Green and Tyrese Halliburton for Jalen Brown. So, I mean, I'd be pretty comfortable pulling that trade off. I don't really... Draymond Green's going to give you, a pretty consistent 35 fantasy points per game. Tyrese Halliburton, I mean, it's whatever. If I'm in, an 8-team league, I don't really value Tyrese's production as, crazy high. I think Jalen Brown's definitely the best player in that trade. And then if you're in a 8 to 10 team league, there's probably someone pretty solid on waivers that you can pick up as well to sort of go with Jalen Brown. So I think that's a decent trade. If you're in a 14 team plus league, obviously I wouldn't take that because the waivers are just very dry. And then the last trade, we got Jalen Brown for Devin Booker. I think that's an interesting trade. If you're comfortable with Jalen Brown, you try to make that trade happen because I think Booker is also dealing with a hamstring injury at the same time, kind of ironically. So I think that's a decent trade if you might be able to pull it out. I think I would honestly rather have Jalen Brown than Devin Booker, me personally in my leagues, but hopefully that gives you guys a good idea of his trade value right now. Like I mentioned before, it is very low at the moment, so that's why I'm pretty comfortable sending in an offer, even though he is dealing with a nagging injury, because there's just so much upside if he can sort of get over that. Again, you don't have to give up that a crazy amount to get him, especially the Devin Booker situation. Maybe some of you would be like, no, Devin Booker is way better than Jalen Brown, but I mean, if they're both dealing with hamstring injuries, then it's not the injury concern is that crazy that's going to break the trade, because they're both dealing with sort of the exact same shit, if you know what I mean. But yeah, and then we'll move on to the next player, who seems to be someone I talk about every single week in these buy low player videos, and it's going to be De'Aaron Fox. So, I don't know if you guys have been watching Kings games, and if you haven't, I really don't blame you. But De'Aaron Fox, man, every single time he drives to the rim, if you have to see him, if he's driving to the rim, I don't know what aversion he has to just taking the layup, but he's sort of stopping and then doing a turnaround fadeaway every single possession. It's infuriating to watch. it like boggles my mind to no end. One of the fastest players in the league, just continues to stop and shoot fadeaways. It's absolutely ridiculous to me, and his value is so low right now. And I do expect it to take a pretty significant increase. I had him ranked very highly at the start of the year, and while I don't think he's going to reach the initial projection I gave him, we're talking about a guy that averaged 25 points per game last season, and right now he's down to around 20. And he's had a few glimpses of being back to his old form. He had a really nice game against San Antonio not too long ago. Good game against the Clippers, and then against the Lakers. And yeah, I think like once the season goes on, like keeps progressing, he is going to get more comfortable and sort of start attacking the rim again. I mean, I don't know what's been going on right now, but I have him in my personal 8-team league, and he's averaging like 33.4 fantasy points per game, and I'm not trading him. I'm just going to hold on. I think his upside is a lot higher than any trade you're going to receive for him. And then we'll just go ahead and get into the trade market and see what recent trades have been going on for him. Let me know if this helps you guys out. I know a lot of people have asked me to like give comparison trades, or like so we can see where a player's value's at or where I value them at. So if this is helpful, just drop a comment, let me know so I know if I should keep doing it or not. But recent trades involving De'Aaron Fox, we have a 1v1 1-for-1 for Ricky Rubio. That's absolutely terrible. That's a steal if you're getting Fox. We got De'Aaron Fox and Seth Curry for Miles Turner. I mean, if you're in a categories league, sure, but points leagues, no shot of making that trade. Let's see, what else we got? De'Aaron Fox for Spencer Dinwiddie and Tyrese Maxey. Like, nah, I'm not feeling that. Like, I would much rather have De'Aaron Fox than either of those guys. Then we have De'Aaron Fox for Kelly Oubre. Man, that's really bad. And then for Rashawn Holmes as well. Like, if that just gives you an idea of some of the trades that are going through, that like his value is so low right now that if you can get him for any of those guys, then that's a deal that you 100% have to at least try to offer to someone, because if you can get a player like Fox in return, I think that could really boost your fantasy team in like the latter part of the season. And I think he has a tremendous upside, like I've already mentioned. So that's going to do it for our buy low players for this week. And now we'll just go ahead and get into my sell high options going into this week of fantasy basketball. All right, so the first player on my sell high list is going to be Jarrett Allen. And I don't think I really need to explain myself too much here. I mean, I think he scored the most total fantasy points last week in terms of fantasy points per game. So if you're going against Jarrett Allen, my thoughts and prayers are with you. I know that must have been pretty painful. And I think it's pretty evident why he's a sell high player. I mean, he's shooting above 80% for the past how many games has it been here? Like 7 or so games. He's averaging like 23 points per game, 12 rebounds. Just the shooting numbers have been ridiculous. He's scoring the ball at a rate that he's never done before, and I'm really just not seeing it maintaining for the entirety of the season. Don't get me wrong, I think he's going to be a really solid player, but putting up these kind of numbers is a really far-fetched in terms of like what we're expecting for his production to be on the entirety of the year. I don't think he's going to be averaging over 20 points per game by any stretch of the imagination, so who knows, maybe I'll be wrong and he'll continue this streak, but I personally am just a little bit skeptical, and if I have him on my team, I think this is a perfect opportunity to sell high for him. And I think the sky's the limit in terms of like who you can trade him for. Off the top of my head, I mean, maybe I'd try to trade him for like a Sabonis or like a Randall, sort of a guys that are like more solidified top 15, top 20 players, because Jarrett Allen has been putting up some ridiculous production, and I'm more confident in those guys and sort of like maintaining that level of like fantasy output, and I'm not as confident in Jarrett Allen. But like I said, if you want to hold on to Jarrett Allen, by all means. I don't think he's going to have like a vicious regress and sort of average below 30 fantasy points per game. I think he'll probably be like upwards of 35 fantasy points per game. That's probably like his floor. I just think that this recent outburst is a bit of an extreme, like a version of Jarrett Allen that we're not going to be seeing for like a long period of time. I mean, just like I mentioned before, who knows? You got to take a bit of a risk when you're picking sell high players, because maybe it'll come back to bite you, and this will just be like the new them, and they'll maintain this sort of production. But for Jarrett Allen, I'm going to go ahead and say that he's a great sell high option this week. There haven't been that many trades involving him, so I can't really give you an idea of who you should go for. One that I see here is the only one here is Jarrett Allen and Zach LaVine for Draymond and Luka. So I don't know if that really helps you guys gauge Jarrett Allen's value himself that well, because there's not really any one for one trades that have happened with him. But yeah, that's just going to go ahead and do it for him. I think he's a sell high player. I don't think his production is going to be that high. That just seems a bit exaggerated, and I'm not really buying it. I'm going to be honest, not buying it. Next up on my list is going to be Jonas Valanciunas, another player who I talk about way too much on this channel. The only reason I say he's sell high is because like Zion is returning. Don't know when. I know if you saw that recent picture of him in that red jumpsuit or whatever you want to call that, it didn't look like he's going to be coming back any soon. Looks like he's been eating too much of that gumbo. But even though like it might not be until he's experienced a slight delay in the rehab. I mean, we all know they're saying like a week or so delay. And to me, that just gives you even more time to sort of try to find a good trade for Jonas Valanciunas. Who knows, maybe Zion won't come back at all, but just with the risk that he does, I do think it cuts into Valanciunas' production a little bit. And I think he'll still be a solid player, but I don't think his value will be as high as it's at right now. And that's the reason why I'm trying to move him, just as like a precautionary measure. Don't get me wrong, I love Jonas Valanciunas for fantasy. He had a crazy game against the Clippers. I mean, we all saw that. He's leading the league in three-point percentage this season. Maybe that's a fun fact for those of you who don't know. But yeah, I think it's just a great time, just as a precautionary measure. I do think there is a risk that Zion cuts into like his field goal attempts mainly, and then a little bit into his rebounding numbers. So it's just like, you know what, why take the risk? We can probably get a solid player in return for Jonas Valanciunas. So if I have him on my team, which I do in one of my personal leagues, I'm just looking to move him right now. And if I can't, like I said, it sucks, but I'm okay with sort of holding on to him for the time being. But for now, if we go ahead and look at the trade market for Jonas, we got a trade for Joel Embiid for Jalen Brown, Jonas Valanciunas for Fred VanVleet, Jonas Valanciunas for Julius Randle. If I could pull off any of those trades, I think I would. The Jalen Brown one's iffy, but I still think I would make that trade in like my personal leagues. Sorry if you guys heard my phone ringing there. And then another trade for OG Anunoby, Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine. I like the Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine deals, honestly. If you can get either of those players for JV, I think those are pretty sort of realistic, I want to say. But these are trades that have actually been completed in other people's leagues. So if that gives you an idea of his market value right now, it is pretty high. And just with the risk that Zion could cut into it a little bit, I don't think it's going to go down severely, like I mentioned. But just with that factor, I think it is worth trying to trade him, especially with some of the trades that people have been pulling off. It looks like you can get a pretty solid deal for him, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and consider him a sell-high player for this week. Alright, and then next up on my list, we have another sell-high candidate, and it's going to be Nikola Vucevic. And I want to put a little asterisk beside this one as well. He hasn't been doing, like, insane the past, like, few games. I mean, he has 2 really solid games and sort of a mediocre performance. This is sort of like a predictive one for, like, this week. Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine are going to go crazy with DeMar DeRozan out. Vucevic's usage rate has just been, like, it hasn't been this low since his rookie season. And with DeMar out with the health and safety protocols, Vucevic is going to have himself a crazy week. I'm just going to predict it right now. I'm very confident that his numbers are going to be probably, like, unlike anything we've seen from him this season. They're going to be probably upwards of 45 fantasy points per game on average. And if we, after like the first 3 games the Bulls play this week, if he puts together 3 really solid games, I'd go ahead and try to sell him high. As well, I do value him as a fantasy asset. I don't think it's going to maintain the production you're going to be seeing from him the next few games for the whole season. Because, like, as we've seen with the Bulls already, the usage rate just isn't there. They're relying more on DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. And they're winning games, so I don't really see why they'd make a drastic shift to get Vooch more involved when everything's sort of working out for them right now. So I just wanted to put this one in here to sort of give you guys an advantage ahead of time. I wouldn't necessarily trade him right now, but if he has a few solid games in a row, I'd go ahead and look for some trades regarding Nikola Vucevic. And I can't really give you his market value because it sort of depends how he does. But just consider this more of a prediction one, so that's why there's an asterisk beside him. If he ends up playing like dog shit this week and I'm completely wrong, then just ignore this and, you know, you can drop a clown emoji in the comments and after this week. But you know what? We'll just hedge our bets and just go ahead and put him on the list for now. Alright, and then to finish off the video, we're going to go ahead and get into my last player on my sell high list, and it's going to be Kelly Oubre Jr. So if you're new to the channel, I love me some Kelly Oubre. I mean, I got the Phoenix Suns Kelly Oubre jersey, my Hornets one's in the mail, and my intramural basketball team is actually called the Kelly Oubre Fan Club. Made it as a joke because I thought it would let me change it later, and it would not. So that's now our basketball team name. And, you know, we've been getting some buckets, but that's besides the point. That's besides the point. Back to the video. Kelly Oubre Jr., I mean, he's going to have a crazy week with the Hornets having all those health and safety protocol guys. I mean, they're missing Melo, Rozier, Ish Smith is now out as well, Plumlee, McDaniels. And Oubre, I mean, he's just a really streaky player. I think we've seen that the past few seasons. Like, when he gets hot, he's almost unguardable from 3. He just knocks them down at such a proficient rate. But it's just not maintainable. Like, the scoring numbers he's putting up right now, I don't think it's going to last for the entire season because he's just way too streaky of a player. He's always struggled with consistency in his career, and I don't think it's going to change right now. He's just on a really insane stretch, but I would expect it to sort of come down to reality sooner rather than later. I mean, obviously not this week because he's going to be getting a lot of shots, and his usage rate's going to be really high. But if you want to hold on to him for, like, 2 or 3 games this week and sort of trade him before the week's over, I don't have anything against that. Like, he was putting up good numbers when Melo and Terry and all them were still there. But I don't think it's going to maintain itself for the entirety of the season, and I think he is a huge sell high candidate. There haven't been that many trades involving him so far, like recently, that I can tell you guys about. Only one here is that he was traded for Mo Bamba, and I feel like after this week, or even right now, you could probably get more than that with Kelly Oubre alone. He's one of the most added players. He's up to like 51% rostered on ESPN. And yeah, I think he's a really solid option. At the time I'm recording this, he has 41 fantasy points at half against Philadelphia, which is kind of ridiculous, but I mean, it's just the fantasy curse. I'm still staying with him. I'm still calling him a sell high player. I do stand by that. If I have him on my team, I'm offering him in trades to every single person in the league right now. Maybe they'll sort of get their eyes caught in the recent string of games he's had. Whereas, I mean, if us like more advanced fantasy managers or people that have been playing fantasy for a bit longer, I should say, we're aware of like Kelly Oubre, man. He has his ups and his downs, and I think this is sort of an outlier in terms of his performances, and that's why I consider him a sell high player for this week. But that being said, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to check out Manscape through the link in the description and use the code TBP for 20% off. Really appreciate you guys. It helps out the channel as well. Thank you so much for watching, as I already mentioned, and as always, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.